Welcome to the Modern Sports Show, home of your college athlete, where we are player-led and player-focused. On today's edition of the Modern Sports Show, before I say that, actually, we are kicking off season 3.
Oh,
season 3. So we are. I think this is a great way to start the season with none other than an ESPN sideline reporter, an Emmy Award-winning former Rutgers University gymnast, and someone fans across the country recognize not just for her work on Saturdays, but for the joy and energy she brings to the sidelines, including what many know as the sideline shimmy. She's also the author of Shatterproof, a powerful story about overcoming the shame of losing her parents to opioid addiction and finding purpose along the way. Without further ado, please help me welcome Lauren Sisler.
Hi.
Lauren, I got it wrong.
Up?
It was actually Lauren Sisler.
Lauren
Sisler.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to do, my
I
best
know.
do, so.
You got it. You did your homework, man.
I did.
I love it.
So, where we are in the calendar, obviously, national championship game played last night. I want you to take off your reporter hat, put on your analyst hat.
Oh,
okay?
gosh.
So tell me last night between Miami and Indiana, what did you see? What were some of your takeaways from the game?
Man, you know what? Kind of going into it, because everybody wants a prediction, right? And I feel like, Indiana is that team that, of course, the highlight of no 5 stars. They're just... Right. They just built their way up. Coach Signetti, obviously coming from JMU and his journey. They were just kind of the team that the little engine that could almost. Okay. That was sort of, to me, like the narrative.
Right.
And then I think Miami is just like scrappy. They're scrappy. Think Carson Beck. He's just scrappy. And so it ended up being a really good game. I was a little nervous because I feel like what has happened in years past, and sometimes like the Miami game prior to that was really good, right? A couple weeks ago. Right. And then you get to the national championship game and it ends up just being a dud. First half was pretty slow, it was obviously defensive, and they were just trying to get that rhythm going. And then it was just fun to see second half, like, all right. And they really just got into it. But then, when Carson Beck threw that interception, you just, that was like, what was your reaction?
My reaction, I was like, Beck, you know better. I guarantee you, he goes back, he watches film, he's gonna look at that like I knew better. 6-year senior, it's just one that you wish you could get back, but it's just how the cookie crumbled.
I know.
But Miami, I tell you what, I knew after, I believe there's the first round of the playoffs, second round, I can't remember, first or second round, when Miami matched up against Texas A&M. The way that Miami defense kind of neutralized Marcel Reed and contained that offense, I was like, yeah, they're going to be tough to deal with.
Yeah.
They're going to be real tough to deal with. And then they follow that up with Ohio State, and they do the same thing. So that Miami team, I kind of hated it for them because I liked the storyline, them being in Miami, having a lot of Miami kids on the roster. So, but yeah. So,
well, and I'll be honest. I mean, let's just be real. Obviously, only one team wins it all. Okay.
Right.
I always struggle because you get to that pinnacle moment of like, okay, who's going to win it all, and then you have to watch that team that gets so close, right? You make it to the playoff, great. You lose the first round of the playoffs, it sucks, but it's not like end of the world,
right?
But you get all the way to the championship and lose, and I just feel so much for those kids. So as much excitement as I feel for Mendoza, and those guys, I also feel a little bit of sadness because I'm like, man. And like you said, Carson Beck, it's just like that moment that he wants to just get back.
So, okay. Going into next season, right, what are some of your takeaways? And then we'll get into you, but what are some of your takeaways just kind of from what you saw over the course of the playoffs, maybe heading into the playoffs? And, what does that look like going into next year?
I'll be honest with you. So obviously as someone that I get spread around, so my job and kind of just for those that don't know, with ESPN, we usually get a game assignment on a Sunday. Okay. And then we're booking our travel. We're flying out Thursday.
Gotcha.
Prep all week. Okay. My job, I kind of dive into storylines, finding, what's that one or two good feel-good stories or just human interest pieces, things like that. From both sides. And then just really digging into each of the teams, because mind you, it's not like when I worked at AL.com, my beat was Alabama and Auburn. So every week I'm on the beat, right? I'm coming up to Alabama. I'm doing press conferences. I'm in, the room with Nick Saban and the players every single week. Whereas this, like learning the team from scratch.
Right.
We did have Baylor 3 times this year. But as you know, the landscape has changed a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Right? So with NIL, transfer portal, you get with these teams and even midway through the year, like they start looking different and feeling different. And
oh yeah, without a doubt.
Trying to learn all that can be challenging. So with that being said, I ended up in the Big 12 a lot again this year with my crew, which was great. A lot of great competition. As I mentioned, we had Baylor 3 times, but we had, some great games that we got to cover. But even like the North Texases of the world, right? It's been fun to see, as much as everyone has an opinion about NIL transfer portal, it has been also fun to see how, now, you're an Alabama guy, right?
Oh, well, are you saying like where I went to school? Or
Yeah. Who was your,
my team growing up?
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? So it was Auburn for a large majority.
Okay.
When I got towards to where, now it's my time to play ball and get to the big leagues, I started to respect Saban a lot more and have more reverence for what he did.
Yeah.
So I think
the longevity and really just like how he was able to truly build a dynasty.
I think so. Right now, I would say I kind of lean more to Alabama, even though I'm a Kentucky Wildcat.
I was going to say yes, and of course we're sitting here in the state of Alabama right now. But yes,
exactly.
But obviously your allegiance, and Kentucky's done some amazing things as well. But I think that. All that to say, just you understand it from roots level, right? And what these coaching staffs have been able to do, Coach Stoops included, and just how for a long time Alabama, obviously it felt to me like it was just a revolving door around Alabama Clemson, and for the longest time it felt like, but there wasn't a ton of disparity. Right. It was like Alabama and then everybody else.
Yeah.
And then of course Georgia started creeping up and making some waves, and then Clemson, like I said, they'd swap back and forth with them, and I think that has why now you see such a difference in the way a lot of these teams are competing. You don't have to be a top 3 team in the SEC to be valid, to be recognized.
And to me, it was even more of like a shock, I guess. Last night, the more I was thinking about it, I'm like, Miami didn't even compete for their conference championship. And here they are in the national championship. So I think just as much good as the sport is trending to, I mean, I could talk about this all day. I think that there's just as much that needs to be fixed in terms of transfer. And I say that, like I said, having gone to a few schools while I was in college. My little brother.
When did you graduate?
I graduated 23. So
was that right? Because when in NIL,
I think NIL was 21 or 22.
22.
Because I remember at the time the big story was Bryce Young and the Dr. Pepper NIL deal. It was like $1 million deal. So, but yeah. So
I mean, you were kind of in that transitional period.
Yes, I was, and I mean, and it's crazy even to the point that you said about like your week to week covering the teams and stuff. It's amazing to me how. And I think that's where people like yourself work in the profession, you have this keen vision. You see things that other people don't see. And when I'm watching a game, a lot of times, I mean, of course you got the schematics of it, but a lot of times it's like the momentum, it's the morale, it's the things that you can't put a stat on that it really, because I went from, like at Kentucky, my lone season there, us jumping out 4-0, right? We're playing a lot of non-conference games for smaller schools. You kind of, it does good to build that morale early in the year. Then you start running to some of the juggernaut programs.
The chainsaw, right?
Exactly. And then it's like you can go on this 5 or 6 week bender where you didn't win a game. And now at the end of the season, you're barely bowl eligible. So, I mean, it's a lot to it.
Oh,
it's a lot to it.
I know it. There is definitely a lot to it. And again, I think so many people, the armchair quarterbacks of the world, which, in theory, look, I never played the sport. I never took a snap of football, right? I'm the gymnast here.
Yeah.
So I could probably be considered an armchair quarterback. But I think everyone kind of has an opinion about how things have shifted. Now, one thing I'd be curious to know. This I feel like you and I can talk about this.
Right.
Something that I've seen shift, and you're not so far removed, right? Okay. So you graduated in 23. You graduated in 23. So you're just a few years removed from graduation. Right. Something that I have seen shift, because again, I kind of entered into this world. I've been doing the sports thing for a long time. I'm old. But when I would say ESPN, I started in 2016. So really kind of that role of doing what I do now, really finding those storylines, telling the stories of more than the X's and O's on the sidelines. One thing, so, as I mentioned, I'll try to find some different storylines. I'll usually talk to a couple players each week from each team. And one thing, I always like to, I don't want to call them softballs, but I like to get to know the person, right? And so I kind of have my chain of questions or whatever. But what I like to throw in there a lot of times is like, who are you? What drives you? What inspires you? Who's a motivating factor in your life? Who has encouraged you, kind of thing. Right. And then, what does life after football look like for you?
For me.
And so I will ask that question. Yeah. Okay. And what are your passions? What career field you want to go into? And a lot of times it's, well, I'm hoping to go to the NFL and pursue that. And so that's why I always preface it by saying, when football is over, whether it's at this level or the next. Yeah. I'm telling you, the majority of kids now, and this is just in recent years, the last 2 or 3 years, the guys typically say 9 out of 10 times, haven't even thought about that. Haven't thought that far ahead. Right. Okay, so help me out with that, because I'm just curious, because I know, gymnastics, there was no professional gymnastics. Like when it's over, it's over. So I knew when I was, I graduated, I was 21, finished my gymnastics career, officially retired. So obviously a little bit different in the sense that I knew there was no professional level. Mm-hmm. But you as a player have to know, even if you think you're going to the league, gonna go get paid, go play for 10 years, because that's what everybody's hopes, dreams, aspirations are. Yes, they are. Like, you've got to have passions, and you have to be thinking in your head, okay, when this is done, I want to. Why have we seen such a shift in recent years? Why? And I don't know if it is NIL transfer portal. Everybody is just so locked in on I'm going to be right here in this moment. I'm going to make as much money as I can. And I'm not saying that in a negative, let me make much money in a greedy way. Yeah. But more or less like, it is a business. Yeah. So their focus is, I am solopreneur right now. I'm going to make the money that I can, be the businessman that I can now, and then I'll focus on the rest later. Right. Is that it? I'm just curious. I would just love to know, especially from someone that played it, and you were in that transitional period of when NIL and stuff was introduced.
That's a valid question. I would say, for me, my answer might not be the most beautiful answer, and I say that because I come from fresh out of high school. For me, it was prep ball and like small junior colleges. Okay, and
so you went the JUCO route.
Somewhat. Okay. You could say. It's a lengthy story. I'm going to have to make a book about it one day.
Yeah. But, okay.
And so, with that being said, right, I had to fight and claw for a lot. And like I said, my long season at Kentucky, the University of Kentucky, was somewhat in part because my little brother, Coach Stoops took us as a package deal. And so, I got the opportunity to kind of fulfill a lifelong dream of mine. I come from Clan, Alabama. You may be familiar with Clan. Yeah. And so just small, limited resources, very similar to growing up in Giles County. Yeah. And so
look, you did your homework. Oh, I love it.
And so, but my parents, after kind of sending me that route, understanding, okay, he had the potential to go in. Could have did more, essentially. My mom, my dad, they made a conscious decision to move to Birmingham. My little brother came up here. He went to Fairfield Preparatory under Keon Hanley, and just took the city by storm. Like, first Maryland was Maryland with Mike Loxley up there, and you know how it goes from there. Yeah. And so committed to Auburn, ultimately ended up flipping to Kentucky. Coach Stoops pulled him, and so to answer your question, even I had to get on my little brother sometimes. Like, hey man, let's do the work. The money is gonna come. Yeah. The money is gonna come. Yeah. But
do you think it's a generational thing?
I don't know. And I'm going to just speak blunt because that's what we do on the Modern Sports Show. I don't know if it's as much a generational thing as it is like background? What's your foundation?
Uh-huh.
What do we come from? Because truthfully, you know, if we don't come from much, when we get the opportunity to have some, we like we start to lose track of like, okay, what's the ultimate goal?
Yeah, and it's harder for you to zoom out.
Come on, and I feel like even for me right now, like this interview in itself took about a year for us to get this live.
Has it been that long?
It's been that long. I my first email to you was and not to say, and I'm not upset about it. Life happens, and it's crazy because I didn't even email you to come on the show, but I emailed you just like, I want to be on ESPN.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know what I mean?
I know, and then when you gave me the life update.
Exactly. And
I mean, it's crazy.
I say that to say, even for me, my life over the past year has changed tremendously as well. And there are times sometimes I have to like set it back and like, this is the ultimate goal. Yeah, I made a couple more dollars. You know, life has changed in a sense. And it's just very important to, like you said earlier, understand your why, what's your motivation. And like, you just I think it's important. You got to have that discernment within yourself. And you also got to have people around you that hold you accountable. Yeah. And that, you know, say, hey man, you know, yeah, we touched a couple, you know, in college, but that's a paycheck in the NFL. That's 2 weeks pay in the NFL, depending on where you go. And, you know, so man, yeah, that's a great question though.
No, and I love that insight because I do think that it is a lot of it, you know, maybe in that upbringing aspect of it, right? Because if you come from something where, you know, maybe you're just not conditioned to look too far ahead. Maybe you're more conditioned to survive, right? And then now you're tasting a little success. And it's like, okay, I am surviving and now I'm thriving.
Right.
But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
And that is, I mean, like truthfully, as a young black man, that is with some sense of awareness, like that was kind of like for one, if I'm gonna be honest, I don't believe that NIL is pay to play. It shouldn't be that. I don't believe I don't care how many stars you have. I don't care how good you are coming out of high school. I don't believe a 17-year-old should go to any university and make millions of dollars off rip, you know, like from the jump. I don't believe that that's what it should be. That's what it's become.
Yeah.
I feel like
it should be an earning.
It should be an earn. Like, hey, you know, what is at the soup store on campus? What are your jersey percentages of? You know, what are you making? What are you know, if somebody's paying you for an appearance, you know, these kind of, if you're on a video game cover, like that, the things that of the past that you would, you know,
you would get compensated
exactly.
For. Yeah.
And so that's what I feel like it should be. I hate that it's not because, like you just said, we don't. It's like you take a person who's been in survival mode for a great deal of their life. Not to say that everybody comes from that kind of background, but and then you thrust them into this. You just say, "Hey, here you go." That's irresponsible on the adult to do that. You know, I watched something. John Calipari, he was at an event a few weeks ago, something like that, and they asked him a question, what he thought about NIL, and he answered it, and he said the only thing that's worse than being broke is getting some money and going back broke. So that's why he said, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's my view on it. Like I said, I could talk about this all day, guys.
I know.
We got to talk about you.
I
know. Gymnastics being a great part of your life. Okay, I want you to take us back. And the one thing that I'll prod you to in this book, guys, which I feel like is more of a reason you should go get the book, you did a great job for a first-time author to like the imagery, the scenes that you painted. I felt like I was there with you in the countryside of Virginia. I really did. So like, and the pictures that you provided, the illustrations, you did an amazing job. I actually have read a book by John C. Maxwell too. The success, I think a success story or something like that.
Yep.
One of his, I can't remember the actual title of it, but. Man, so you did an amazing job, phenomenal job. I want you to take me back, though, and I want you to, you know, what was it like growing up in Roanoke, Virginia, in the family with your mom, dad, your brother, Alan? Explain to me that. What was that like?
I really appreciate you saying that, first and foremost, because, as a first-time author, like, had no idea how this was going to go. And I do have to credit, you know, I had a team of people that really helped me and a co-writer that really just forced me, because I can tell you, if I would have gone pen to paper in my own thoughts and in my own head with nobody questioning anything, I would have been like surface level right here. That forced me to dig so deep.
Yeah.
Because it's the questions that everyone has.
Yeah.
But I almost had to look in the mirror and say, you know, I want to know the answer to these questions too. But for so long, I had like pushed it away, because I think that is our defense mechanism in protecting ourselves, protecting the things that we're scared of, the things that scare us the most, the things that create anxiety. And so obviously this book really kind of lays that foundation, right, of going from, you know, and obviously we'll dive into that right now, but just going from, you know, that little gymnast, you know, thriving, going after that college scholarship, to tragedy, to then, you know, that redemption story, right? And so with that being said, you know, just growing up, you talk about the countryside. You know, I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia, and Clinton. I feel like I've maybe passed through Clinton.
Oh, for sure. Going back and forth,
Clinton,
Birmingham.
I mean, it's got a rural feel to it,
very,
right? I mean, rural.
Very.
I don't know how many kids you graduated with.
Probably about 200 kids. I think.
So I got you beat. I'm like at 100. I graduated with like 100 kids in high school. But rural communities. So grew up in Roanoke, which was a little bit more of a, you know, a city, but we're talking about like maybe more of the size of like, you know, Hoover on its own, or Shelby County on its own, you know, not the metro area.
Yeah.
But then we moved out to the country. My parents had acquired some land. We built a house and what we considered to be our dream home. And again, modest dream home, like 2,000 square feet. But, you know, everything was new and exciting and like, we're doing this, you know, and as you mentioned, my older brother, Alan, 2.5 years older than me, and he had his sights set on pursuing a career in the military. He wanted to be in the Navy, just like my dad. And so, like, we were on the track, right? Like, I'm going after the college scholarship. He's going after the Navy. Was life perfect? Absolutely not. But in my mind, like, my brother and I had all the resources, everything we needed, and most importantly, the unconditional love from our parents, right? The love and support that we needed to succeed and to feel supported in all of our adventures, everything that we did. And so that was really it. You know, I was so committed to gymnastics, traveling over an hour each way to practice every day, 20 plus hours, you know, in the gym. Because, you know, gymnastics we didn't have gymnastics in high school. So everything was like on the club level. So in order to pursue that gymnastics career, I had to kind of make those sacrifices and compete outside of the realm of high school. So, you know, that was the childhood. That was the dream. And I think the coolest part of all that too is that it wasn't just my dream, it was also my parents' dream, right? We had worked towards this dream together. And so I knew when I signed that letter of intent to go to Rutgers, which, you know, was a whole thing. And you know, the recruiting process, like rejection is real.
Yeah.
Like you get like the rejection, the up and down, like that's one thing that people see the you know, the table and the parents and everyone sitting there with the pom-poms and the balloons and the letter of intent is sitting there and you sign that letter. But what they don't see is all the heartache and the devastation, the rejection that came before it.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Right? To get to that point. You know, so for me, Rutgers, like that was kind of the last scholarship standing. But I felt like it was a good fit. I felt like it was gonna be a good fit for me and a place that I could call home, even though it was 8 hours from home. And here we go. Let's do it.
I mean, now there's a scene in the book you take us through. You're waiting to get on the bars, I believe.
Yeah.
You got Coach Crystal Norton waiting. She's watching. She's a spectator, and you know your sole aim is impress her, like going to get this scholarship. And you got your parents sitting in the stands, also, you know, and cheering you on and supporting you. And then you say a girl, I think, falls off the bars and like breaks her arm, I believe, or some pretty
it goes
grotesque,
different direction.
And so, I mean, in that moment, right? Because we all have those moments in life where it's like a lot on the line and you gotta get the job done, okay? Yeah. What was that situation like for you? Because that would continue to set the foundation for what your life would become.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, because at that point, I had faced the rejection of Air Force Academy. That became like my number one choice. Wanted to go to Air Force Academy. Wanted to get scholarship, obviously, but go to med school. And I knew that was the ticket financially, right? That my family couldn't afford to send me to school, much less med school. So that was the dream at that point. And then that went away because my SAT scores sucked. And so then Rutgers, like I said, one scholarship left. It was late in the signing period. And I just knew, like, if I'm going to pursue this dream, like it's all or nothing right here. And putting that on the line and just, saying, okay, here we go. And it really was, like you said, almost like a foundation, and really just this idea. And I use this, and as an athlete, I got really good at compartmentalizing things, really good at it, right? And so growing up, when hardships would strike, when my parents would face tough times, I got really good at like compartmentalizing those things. Okay, move on, next thing. You fall down, you get back up, you finish your routine, you move on to the next event, right? That's the rinse and repeat cycle. And I feel like I got really good at that in life. And that was a moment that obviously tested me. I'm up there to do the bar routine. I've got to hit this bar routine if I want this scholarship. The head coach of Rutgers is there judging this bar routine, and they were recruiting me for bars. That was one of my better events. And I just remember this girl fell right in front of me, snapped her arm in two, gruesome injury, takes, minutes to get her off the mat. And, in gymnastics, like your body gets cold. Within a minute, you're cold. Like that's it. And mentally, my head, I'm just in it. But it's almost like I just learned to compartmentalize and take that situation and say, all right, okay, wrap it up. We got this. So it was like I just knew like everything was on the line for this moment. And I wanted nothing more than to earn that scholarship. And most of all, like make my parents proud. Yeah. Like, and I knew like they were sitting there because, again, this was not just my investment. This was theirs. Yeah. Not just my dream. This was theirs. Right. And I think that's really how I operated in life. I don't want to say my parents were like the really, okay, let's just set the record straight. Look, we've heard about like, dance moms, right? Yeah. Soccer moms, like parents that really get into it for their kids. And don't get me wrong, my parents were very invested, but I will say that they also let me fail. They let me fall at times. I wasn't always the easiest with my coach. I would mouth off at times, and they said, all right, you're gonna call your coach and you're gonna apologize and you're gonna show respect. Yeah. And I appreciated about my parents, because while they supported me, they also encouraged me to fight my own battles. Yeah. And I think that's important because important. I think sometimes now, and as a mom now of a 2.5-year-old, my son is going to face challenges, and I, as much as I want to scoop him up and like make everything be okay, it's not always going to be that easy. And so, for me, that having that perception, I think is important, and I hope that I can carry that into the depths of motherhood here, because being the disciplinarian is not easy.
Let me ask you this. So you get through that, but the one thing that I'll say this, you being a college gymnast, like because I think it's one thing to like do something like as a youth sport and even a high school sport, but to get to I tell people a lot of times, like if you go to college to play any sport, you got to understand how good of an athlete this person was. I don't care if it's NAIA. Like it's not an easy task to go to college and play sports, and let alone being a gymnast at the Division I.
Oh my gosh, my husband played golf in college, and he's always like, "Oh, it's D3." I'm like, you swinging a club and like at any level is impressive.
That's very golf impressive,
and it's such a challenging sport.
And I'll say this: being a gymnast, because I still stay fit. I still try to get my thing going, but I can't do a muscle up. I've tried to do a muscle. I can do pull-ups. I can probably get about 15-ish on the pull-up bar, straight. But like, and I've actually hung on the rungs, the circle, rings. Yeah. I've hung on those before and tried to do stuff, but to actually
the iron cross.
Yeah,
that's just not even human to me.
And this is kind of like a double question, but you go to college. How physically demanding was it being in college? And then secondly, what, like, I guess, what did you have to sacrifice to, I guess make it that far? Like, was it, what was the childhood? Was there, was it like a Venus and Serena kind of childhood? You know what I mean?
No, I mean, obviously a lot of sacrifice, right? I mentioned 20 hours a week, commuting over an hour each way to practice. I literally had to get dismissed from school a period early, which everybody always thought that was so cool. But like my mom's bringing my little lunchbox and I'm eating my, lunch/dinner on the way to practice, hour-long drive. So the sacrifices were already there, but then you get to college, right? And I mean, it's a totally different world, right? Like you're on your own. You got classes spread out all over the place, but you're having to manage, life as an athlete, as a student athlete. And I remember, I had a roommate, dear friend, Katie, loved her, but she wasn't an athlete. A lot of my other roommates were. And so we all kind of had our times and, where we had to be. And then, of course, 4-hour time block. So in addition to all the classes, you're adding another 4 hours on top of your day.
Yep.
To that timeline, right? Yeah. And I just remember, having insights with her. Now, don't get me wrong, she was very active in different things that she was doing within the university and very studious and, kind of had her routine. But I always thought to myself, like, man, if I had an extra 4 hours in my day, what would that look like, right? And then on top of that, just beating myself up every day, right? Yeah. Rolling out of bed, feeling like every bone in my body is just going to like, walking around on campus, legs taped, ankles taped, ice wraps, right? Leave practice, literally showing up to my next class, taped up, sweatpants on, taped up with ice all over myself.
Yeah.
That was the price you pay, right? Especially in a sport that is so grueling on the body, is not forgiving at all. And, us gymnasts, our shelf life looks quite different than you football players, right? Yeah. Like we peak around 12 or 13 years old and then it is downhill, right?
Okay.
21 years old. The thought that Simone Biles, still to me, the greatest of all time, doing gymnastics at the Olympic level at age 28, just it's hard to put that into words because it's almost like, you talk about like the Tiger Woods of the world and, your Michael Jordans. It's basically like, Michael Jordan when he was in his prime, if you added 10 years to his age for him to like still compete at that same level, if you took him at his like, when it was time to retire, add 10 years to his life. Yeah. Like that's what we're talking about with her being able to compete at that level. So it's a lot of wear and tear, but it's, the transformation, the transition, and then the transformation is real. But I think it also sets you up for a lot of, I felt like it really prepared me for life, and especially the life and the challenges that I would soon face early in my college career.
I want to tag this on too, because this is something that I dealt with, hitting a massive growth spurt. Mm-hmm. So like you hit a growth spurt, and being a gymnast, like you are, you got some height on you, but before you didn't. And so like, what was that like, having like you trained a certain way?
Oh gosh.
And then all of a sudden you hit this growth spurt, this unwanted growth spurt.
Yeah.
And now you got this long, lanky body. I hated it. I was like, man.
Yeah.
It took me a while to grow into my frame. And so for you, what was that like as you're trying to go for a scholarship and get into college? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, that's that was the challenge, right? Because in gymnastics, again, you talk about Simone Biles, 4'8". I am literally 5'9", y'all, like way too tall to be a gymnast. Thankful for that now in my older age.
Yeah.
But the growth spurt's crazy because in gymnastics, like your body is trained to operate a certain way, like the way that I flip through the air, the way that I swing the bars. Yeah. The bars have a legal height limit for safety reasons.
Right.
Height, width, they're cabled into the ground. Like I had basically gotten to the point, because I grew 2 inches when I was in college, which again is unheard of for women, but I had to get to the point where I had to learn to flex my big toe when I would swing through on bars so that I wouldn't scrape the ground, because I literally was tall enough that I could just brush the mat.
Yeah.
And so it was an adjustment, and it showed up. And I think that's why, I had a lot of back issues, fractured femur, and just different ailments that, had I maybe been a lot more petite and compressed, might not have experienced.
Okay. I mean, so, all right. So I want to give this moment, it's just due in the interview, because I think that it's a great part of your journey. And I think it's a great part of who you are today, right? Our adversities are kind of what, build us up and create the, what we become. And so I just briefly want to touch on, the adversity that you dealt with in your freshman year, and kind of, how difficult losing your parents may have been, going almost towards the end of your freshman year, and just the adjustments, the life adjustments, your frame of mind at the time, just everything, all the emotions, if you could, I guess, just briefly touch on that.
Yeah. I think that, as I'm obviously entering into this next chapter of life, living the dream at Rutgers, living my dream, living my parents' dream, as I mentioned, life was going according to script. Like, I thought everything was on track. Like, life is good. I'm doing this thing. Like, it's challenging at times, but I'm figuring it out. I'm making my way. Second semester, you finally feel like you kind of have your feet wet. You're like adjusting. Okay, right. I'm figuring this out. It's not easy, but we're figuring it out. We had gotten to spring break, and so it was, we were still in competition season. I had not broken the lineup, so I was not competing. And a lot of times freshmen don't see the lineup. It's just kind of how it works, as you know, in football as well. But just grinding away, trying to overcome some of these little ailments and injuries that I had. And so, I'm just living life, doing the college life, trying to figure it all out. And when I went to college, my relationship with my parents was still really close. Like, we were best friends, right? So not a day went by that we didn't talk on the phone, didn't have any sort of correspondence. We always talked on the phone. We would email sometimes as well. But, constant communication was very important with me and my mom and dad. And so second semester freshman year, I picked up the phone, called my parents like I always did. It was an evening, Sunday evening, around 8:00. I remember calling my parents, talked to my mom and dad, said our I love you, said goodbye. Everything seemed normal, and went to bed that night to wake up to a phone call with my dad letting me know that my mom died. And it just came as a complete shock. She's 45 years old. It's the middle of the night. It doesn't make sense. Like, what happened? And he said, I can't explain it now. I need you to get on the next plane you can. I'll be at the airport to pick you up. And he never showed up that day. And instead it was my uncle and my cousin who had to tell me that my dad too passed away. And so just the shock of losing my mom and then my dad within 5 hours of each other, and just really having no comprehension of why. Like, how did we get here? And I think that was the hardest thing for me, and really having to unpack that. And it would take years. The autopsies within 90 days clearly pointed out that my parents died of fentanyl overdoses. My parents were going to pain management doctor, dealing with chronic pain. Mom had degenerative disc disease. Dad had chronic back pain, also struggled with PTSD from his service in the military. And so they were dealing with that. And that had been for a few years while I was in high school. So I was watching them go to the doctor, seeing them come home, seeing the medicine cabinet with, prescription pill bottles,
right,
but never thinking, oh, this is a problem.
Yeah.
Like, not once did I ever say, oh, this is a real problem.
Yeah.
Hindsight's always 20/20. You look back and you're like, oh, well, there's a sign here and maybe a little sign here, but nothing that was an indication that this was a problem.
Yeah.
And so when this happened, when I'm in school, I just feel like I'm, first of all, a million miles away, but like, I'm 18. And let's be real, you're still a young buck. How old are you now?
25.
You're 25. Yeah, still young. You still have a lot of life left to live. But what I knew at 25 that I didn't know at 21, at 18,
oh, yeah,
like, just so much to figure out. I didn't even know how to write a check, right? Yeah. Have a bank account, much less. Like, figuring all that stuff out and how I was gonna, make this thing work. without my parents. Not only the devastation of like losing my two best friends, losing everything because my parents didn't have a will, the cars were repossessed, the house went into foreclosure. We lost everything because my parents, the estate was in shambles. There was no money. Like there was nothing left. I mean, we are like in the negatives, like way in the negatives. So as an 18-year-old, I'm having to figure all that out and alongside my brother and just figure out what do we do? Like, how are we going to do this? And so on top of being a new college kid, trying to pursue this, you know, obviously sports career, gymnastics career, but also get a degree, do pre-med, try to get into med school, like all these things. And I'm like, wait, like, how am I going to do this? And it was a lot to unpack in such a short amount of time. And then I think the biggest factor in all that is understanding the why and how I grappled with that for so many years because of the shame and the pain that I felt, because 90 days after they died, like I said, we knew it was fentanyl overdoses. I say we knew. From a medical standpoint, it was known. But to me, I refused to accept it. And so I ran and I hid as far as I could from any thought that my parents had a problem with addiction.
Let me ask you this. As a big brother myself, I'm oldest of 4. What role did Alan play in your life, you know, at the time of losing your parents?
Yeah. That was a big part of my life. And, you know, I'll preface it by saying, unfortunately, we lost him in November of last year in 2024, which was hugely challenging because that also came on the heels of publishing this book, which is much is even though I am technically the author of this book, my brother was very much a big part of that and gave his heart to it and honestly his blessing, which, you know, is a big brother. Like if your family's not in alignment with your goals and your visions and really our family story.
That's
here.
It was, I mean, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I do want to tell you thank you, and I appreciate you for being as vulnerable in this, because I could tell I'm sure you had to get a lot of people's blessings, you know, outside of just your immediate family. And so I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate that because yes, that was a big part of it. And I was like, if there's 2 people that have to sign off on this, it was my brother and it was my auntie Linda. Like they were the 2 people that I needed to have their blessing in all of this, as they were big parts of the story. And are such a big part of my, you know, my story and my journey. But my brother, you know, I think he was military, right? And I mentioned, you know, he went and pursued the military career. And I think what was interesting, our relationship, you know, we were brother and sister, you know, we, as you know, sibling rivalries, always competitive, always making everything into a competition, you know, and we had a great relationship, but then at times we were picking on each other, you know? So it was always the ups and downs of being siblings, right? You know, the sibling rivalries were definitely real. But, you know, he went off to the Navy where he deployed 3 times. And, you know, I'm at Rutgers. And I just think that our relationship certainly grew closer together because really we spent a lot of time apart. Once, you know, he was in the Navy, he would come back home on the weekends with his Navy buddies a good bit. But I just remember, you know, there was a distance that started to infiltrate because of the fact that he's, you know, away on leave, on deployment. You know, I'm not seeing him as much. So then when I went to Rutgers, you know, I'm kind of putting the big girl pants on. And so we're still brother and sister and still touch base and still check in. But when my parents passed away, you know, that was a big factor for me, you know, just kind of having him there. But he was also like the big brother in a lot of ways that I looked up to because in a lot of ways, like I felt like he was extra tough.
Gotcha.
So when my parents died, it was like, oh man, like
he got some. He had something that you needed.
Yeah, like this toughness.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you. On the flip side of that, I do feel like, you know, his toughness. I think the things that impacted him. Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am. No, you're good.
I'm losing my voice here. The things that impacted him. You know, I think that he was conditioned as, you know, a serviceman, to not acknowledge some of the things that maybe I was walking through, right?
Yeah.
I remember I'd call him up sometimes, like crying, like, you know, what are we going to do without mom and dad? He's like, you got to put on the boots and go to war, right? Like, this is it. This is life. You got to keep going.
Yeah.
And I felt like in a lot of ways that was so stoic. And I'm like, man, how does he have this thing figured out? But then I think as life happens, you know, I think in a lot of ways my brother was conditioned that way. And I think he faced a lot of internal battles that I didn't see.
Yeah.
And that, you know, ultimately played a part in maybe the longevity of him not being able to necessarily deal with a lot of things that our family was dealt, you know, over the course of time. And again, you know, that's kind of a different story, but in and of itself, my brother was a big part of my life and, you know, a big foundation. And, you know, I am grateful that I had someone like him to, you know, experience it on the depths, because there's something with siblings. We were experiencing something very unique. And I think we shared a bond that I couldn't possibly share with anybody else because of the nature of what had happened.
It's amazing too, because it's crazy. It's like your parents are the ones that create you, but I don't know. It's like that the bond that you have with your siblings. It's like, I don't know, you know, like
someone explained it to me, because we talk about grief, and especially after losing Alan, you know, this understanding, because it is very complex. But what it is like, because I thought like, okay, I lose my parents, like nothing could be worse, right? Yeah. And then it's like I lose Alan. I thought I had that suit of armor on. I thought I was equipped and ready to handle grief.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, but no, like this is, it hit me.
Yeah.
And first of all, who was I to think that like I had the, you know, the protection of grief is grief, man. And it doesn't matter if it is your, you know, your hamster, you know, or a close family member or whoever it is. But I think what someone explained to me is like, you know, your parents bring you into this world. And then of course your future, your present, your future, like my husband and my son. But my brother is that common thread between both, right? Yeah. Because my husband and son are the present and the future. My parents are the past, and my brother, the sibling, is like that common thread that's supposed to be woven between the two, right?
No, I definitely understand that constant. Wherever you go. I mean, and I really sympathize with Alan's disposition. Like I know, because like I told you before the interview, just a tidbit. My grandmother, my late grandmother, and your late mother, they share the same birthday.
December 19th.
December 19th. And when I read, I was towards the end of the book when I read that, and I was just like, wow, you know, the commonalities. Yeah. But then back to Alan, like when we lost her, because she was a very keystone piece in our lives, you know, I felt like I had to display that toughness, you know. And it's crazy because the similarities are your father being in the military, Alan seeing your father and probably seeing as tough as he was and made it through certain things in life, he picked up that toughness. And for me, it was very similar. My grandfather was in the military, and I kind of, you know, it's like those military men, and there are other similarities between my grandfather and your father. And so like he passed back in 22 around the time we got to Kentucky. And so when we lost him, you know, it was just, it's a lot of things, I would say, just that toughness that you get almost like hereditarily.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, when the family does experience that kind of loss or these kind of obstacles, you just like, man, I got to step in this role. Yeah. I got to be what I know everybody else can't be right now.
And I'm sure as the older brother, number 4, you know, you're number 1 of the 4, right? You were the first.
As far
as oldest.
Yeah, oldest.
You're the oldest sibling.
Yeah.
You almost take on that ownership, right?
Yeah,
that it's unspoken, but like you're the one that's got to step up.
I got to do
and
it.
Be tough and be all the things for everybody.
And not just in that regard, but just my success. I feel like their success is predicated on my success as a person and what I do in my life.
Yeah.
And so that's part of why I go as hard as I do. But I appreciate you for sharing that, Lauren. I know that's and I don't care how far away that you get from it. I know for me and what my grandparents meant to me,
Yeah.
the role they played in my life. It's something that it's just.
And I always want to encourage people, because people do like to make comparisons sometimes,
Yeah.
like, oh, I haven't gone through what you have, or mine happened X amount of years ago. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because that hurt is still there, that grief is still there, that loss, that emptiness, right? That void. And while we have other blessings and things that will, fill in, I mean, there's nothing harder than right now to me having a 2.5-year-old. I watch him do things, like certain things, like he just will have this smirk on his face sometimes. I'm like, that is my brother.
Uh-huh.
That's my brother. But loves monster trucks, love Hot Wheels. Like he has a lot of similar interest as my brother did, especially growing up. And I think one of the hardest things is, obviously there's so much joy that I get from watching him playing with his toys and having some of the same interests as my brother, and the sadness that comes with that, of my brother's not here to witness this. My brother's not here to embrace this, to feel this, to see this. And neither are my parents.
Yeah.
And even though it's been 22, almost 23 years in March since my parents died, just over a year since, my brother died, like that will never go away. The hopes, dreams, goals, aspirations that we have for our loved ones, in their absence, and the things that they're missing out on, that's hard. So, I think you and I obviously recognize that, and anybody that's listening to this, you're valid in your feelings of loss and grief is challenging, no matter what course or what phase. People try to put a timeline on grief, the research behind grief, like, oh, this is this phase and this phase and this phase. Well, the way I look at it is like, I am just knee deep in it, and that's just how it is,
And it's volatile. It's volatile. But thank you again for sharing that, because I do know, there are a few stories even throughout the book, where just how your story inspired other people, and what that did, and how it impacted their lives. So I appreciate you for that. I do want to transition. You graduate, you make it through. Coach Norton, she pulls you into her office. She says, "Lauren, it's time to wake up.
I love it. Yes."
And so you had this resurgence in school. You're back. We're getting our grades up. We're getting healthy. We're working to get healthy in the training room. We're kind of, our teammates are there for us. We're starting to get some life back. But in the midst of that, you go to Aunt Linda, you go to Uncle Mike, and you say, "Hey, I don't know if pre-med is my thing." And so, speak to that transition. Obviously, that carried you to where you are today. And, what was the thought process at that time? And just kind of speak to that if you
want. Well, and I think, as you know, right, because your football career took a lot of different turns. Yeah. And what you had to do. I wanted to be a sports doctor. I thought, as a former, as a gymnast at the time, I'm like, ooh, I can really empathize with these athletes. Like, how many times were you in the training room? A million times, right? And I'm like, okay. So sports doctor, physical therapist, whatever, that was kind of the thought. But let's be real. Like, the grades weren't cutting it. It was not pretty. Okay. And I think life, as we all know, doesn't look the same. When we're 5 years old, putting on the fake stethoscope and being like, oh, let me check out your heart. Yeah. Like, it's a lot different than when I turn and see an ankle twisted on the sidelines of a football game, and I'm like, can't stomach that like I thought I could. And I think that a lot of that's I have my own PTSD from like former gymnastics injuries. I'm sure you can vouch for that as well. Like ankle injuries, like all the things. But I remember that moment when I had to call my aunt and uncle, because I was going to tell them at Christmas, and I like chickened out and didn't tell them. And I was so afraid of like the response. And I think part of it's because my uncle was an ER doc, and he's since retired, but it was almost like a pride thing a little bit. And then also admitting like, hey, this isn't for me. I'm going in a different direction. Like, it's almost, in a lot of ways at the time, I looked at it as admitting to failure. Yeah. But that's not what it is, right? It's admitting that I've grown, I've matured, I've learned, and I'm making a bold decision to say, hey, this isn't for me. Like, that to me is courage.
Why do you think us as athletes, I sympathize with that thought, because it's like, I'm not going hard enough. Or it's like, this really just is not for you. You know, why do you think that is?
Oh, I mean, I think you nailed it. As athletes, we are conditioned, right?
Yeah.
Again, next man up mentality.
Yeah.
And it is like you go all in, you go hard, or you go home. Like there is only one way, and that is to victory, right?
Mm-hmm.
To win this thing.
Right.
And so whatever that goal is to get there, you know, and I think it is sometimes more challenging in the competitive spirit of almost like I lost the competition.
Yeah.
I was competing with myself to get to this thing.
Yeah.
And I've lost.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I felt like that was a loss, right? I took a big bad L, y'all. But it was crazy because when I had that conversation with my aunt and uncle, my uncle was like, yeah, I could have told you it would have taken you quite a bit to get into med school, right? Yeah. So he was real with me. He's Mr. Calculus over there crunching numbers. He's like, yeah, I thought that was going to be challenging for you to get there. But it was such a relief. And I think that is the courage that we have to show, courage and grace. Mm-hmm. We have to use the word grace because as much as toughness, as athletes, competitive toughness, like grace, like we don't need to look at that as a soft word, right? Gotcha. Grace is something we all deserve. And I'm telling you, you know, when life happens for you and, you know, Lord willing, whatever that looks like, and you start a family and do all the things, like you're going to have to learn to give yourself grace because let me tell you, you know, I now being a parent, I see that parenting me probably was not easy. And my parents did a dang good job of it, but man, they had their hands full. Yeah. Woo! My poor husband, he's got his hands full. He jokes sometimes. He's like, "We all pray for me. Please pray for me." But you know, I think that to me was just an indication, like, all right, it's time to shift gears, and that's okay. It's not failure. It's honestly a bold decision. It's a courageous decision, and it means, hey, I want to equip myself to put myself in the best seat to not only succeed, but find passion in the work that I'm doing.
Very well. And you have I can't remember her name, but you do have a friend to thank for that.
Yes, Miss Dawn Gill.
Okay.
Dawn Gill. I know. Well, she was the one that was doing sports broadcasting. And she's like, come over here and do this with me. So here we are.
So, I mean, you follow her advice, right? You look into it and you say, hey, I'm going to switch my majors to communications. You do that. And then, we go through college. I think we say we managed to get our GPA up to 3.2.
Yeah. 3.2
GPA. So we're kind of, back in smooth waters. We graduate. And now we're out into the real world. It's time to get, search for our first opportunity. And I believe you found that at WDBJ.
Yeah. You are so good at this. You are good.
And
do you have photographic memory?
I do.
Somewhere. You do?
Yeah, somewhere.
So is that how you can remember the names like Crystal Chalet Norton because you remember seeing it there?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
This guy.
Get started with WDBJ. Just how did you go through? Well, take us to where we are today in terms of, some of the things you experienced, the people you experienced to help get you to where you are today.
Yeah, it's crazy because you in the career field, in the career life, you hope that someone will take a chance on you, and I feel like that was really, how the doors began to open for this career at ESPN. It didn't happen overnight. It was a lot of ups and downs. You mentioned WDBJ. I had guys there. Shout out to Chris Miles and Grant Kittleson and Mike Stevens and Travis Wells, all a big part of giving me that chance, right? They saw this young green girl had zero experience, but they said, you know what? Go out and do this thing. If it's good, we'll put it on the air. And it was just building from there, right? Finding stories, encouraging me to do that. And then I went off to WTAP in Parkersburg, West Virginia, small town station, covered a lot of high school sports, got the experience that I needed, made a lot of mistakes along the way, looked like a fool many a times. But honestly, it was great. It was the experience that I needed to be able to, get my feet wet and make my mistakes and learn and grow. And then ended up here in Birmingham, Alabama in 2011. And that was kind of like that turning point. And, it's funny because you say, think about people giving you a chance and being able to have that chance. And, working under people like Jim Dunaway. He was someone that really kind of brought me up. Once I got here to Alabama, I was still green, very green. But he was very encouraging and kind of like kept me on track and said, look, like you got this. And like really kept just pushing me to be better and never gave up on me. And it was one of those things where you just continue to work and grind and rep and rep and rep. And finally in 2016, I got that call from ESPN that said, hey, you're going to go cover an Auburn game. So you're Auburn Tigers, my friend. And did my first Auburn game and was not great, was probably pretty ugly, but I did it, right? Yeah. And I say, you know what? You just got to jump scared, baby. That is a mantra in life that I've taken on is you got to jump scared, learn to jump even when it scares you the most. Yeah. Because in life, that's the only way you're going to find success and be able to do the thing that's going to scare the crap out of you. Just do it.
Hey, you say a very real point there. Guys, as we wrap this up, I want to tell you, like I said, I appreciate you for coming on the show. I know that was abruptly, but we got somewhere we got to be at 12:30.
Yeah. So, well, hey, you know what? No, like not abrupt at all. I just appreciate you. I appreciate your realness, your honesty. I don't know. Like I think obviously the work that you're doing, the aspirations that you have, I think you kind of call it like it is. Like you're taking the time to do this. You drove down, found this studio for us to record at. Taking the time to make this relationship, even after a year. I said, hey, come back to me, circle back. I know I was knee deep in it. And then I think when my brother passed away, I kind of just went off the grid for a while. I believe we had talked then. Mm-hmm. And I really just wasn't doing any, media and podcasting at that point. And then kind of jumping back into it. But I love like your heart for this and like the story you talk to different athletes and just people in the community. I think that, people's stories, like that connection piece, like where we come from, understanding the why, all that stuff is so important. I think you do such a great job of that. And I just appreciate the opportunity to meet with you. And hopefully maybe this will just be part one of many. So maybe there's a reason, we get cut off. Yeah. We're just going to do it again.
Without a doubt. I'm looking forward. Hopefully I can get to SEC Media Days.
Yeah.
So
hey, that's a great place to, for sure, just learn the ropes and really get into the, I mean, it's fun. SEC Media Days is fun. Yeah. Did you ever, you never went to SEC Media Days?
I wasn't that kind of guy.
Well, I was going to say they do usually pick their like one or two, three people that literally are in the media, the car wash every day, the media car wash we like to call it. But SEC Media Days, is it in Birmingham this year?
I don't know. You would know better than me.
Shoot, I don't know. Yeah. I have to look because I know it used to be at the Winfrey.
Right.
Over at
last year they went to Nashville or Dallas or something like that.
I think it was Nashville. Maybe it was Dallas. I don't know, but they've done it at Atlanta at the College Football Hall of Fame. They've done it all over. But I encourage you, great place to go, network, meet people, have conversations, and really just, keep doing this work.
Oh, yeah. So. Without a doubt. We got Lauren Sisler on the show, guys, so I'm in good shape. And, guys, go get this book. This is a great read. I thoroughly enjoyed, like I said, your vulnerability, just using your story to inspire and impact others. Before we get out of here, is there anything that floor is yours, anything you got going on, anything you want to talk about, just, any projects you're working on?
Yeah, actually, speaking of working on a project for my brother, dear Alan. I do some work with Alabama Veteran here in the state of Alabama. They are a great foundation, a great resource, a nonprofit that works with Alabama veterans from Alabama and from around, kind of the region, if you will, that help, military men and women kind of get back on their feet. And my brother actually worked with them, volunteered with them, and also attended some of their retreats that really helped him find some breakthrough moments, which was awesome. Because I think that's one thing that we don't always realize is that we don't all wear our wounds and our scars on the outside. Yeah. And a lot of times we're all dealing with something inside. And so the hope is with this documentary that we're able to, shed some light on, Alan's life and legacy and maybe some of the struggles that he, dealt with in his journey, but also the impact that his story had on people while he was here, but will continue to have, as life continues. And just grateful for that. So we're working on that project with a friend of mine, Will, who's part of Alabama Veteran, excited to see where that goes. And then, just continuing to spread the good word. My mantra in life, I mentioned jump scared being one of them, but really fall in love with your story. And that is always my hope and goal, is to encourage and inspire people to fall in love with their story. Every single chapter, not just the highlight reel. But y'all, we got to learn to honor the struggle.
Yes,
because let's be real, we all struggle at some point. And you are kidding yourself if you think that you don't struggle in life. Am I right?
Yeah, right.
So being able to honor that and recognize that's what shapes us. So I just appreciate that opportunity and appreciate you being willing to bring me on and make this thing happen.
Of course, guys. I think that's a great way to kick off season 3 with the one and only Lauren Sisler. Guys, I appreciate you for sticking around and watching today. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe.
Yes.
Do all that fun stuff. Help build the channel, so we can keep getting guests like Lauren. So, guys, without further ado, I will see you on the next episode. All right, thank you, Lauren.
So good. You were awesome. I hope you didn't